We're down here on my bottom where there's a lot of good quality walnuts. This is just a random one we walked up to that's a nice quality walnut. And we'll manage these bottoms by thinning some of the inferior trees out, either species or junk walnuts. I was telling Jake that you can generally get about twice the growth rate if you free up the canopies and let these things flourish. So, you know, this is money later, but it also, we got this to be really thick. But one little gauge you could use, I'm a little over 6 foot. You can kind of see my arms. If I can't get around a tree like that, we're getting into the size that, you know, you could take. I mean, clearly this tree right here is maybe 14, 15 inches. And I mean, I can overlap by that much. It's not even close. Know what trees to take. Get a conservative forester in there. Don't get a logger in there to tell you what to do. A conservative forester. And veneer trees, I mean, we're talking, you know, we're talking 25 plus on a veneer tree. 25 inches DBH. At the minimum on veneer, unless they're going to fall into the creek. Your lumber grade you can take at a younger point or at a smaller diameter. I mean, I shoot for usually 1920s, what a lot of the loggers want to mess with. But a lumber grade, I'm not as concerned. A veneer, I protect them just like I've said before. Like it's like a young veneer is worth good money, but it's like your best genetic 2 or 3 or 4 year old. You know, with kickers and flyers and drops all over. You know, you don't want to take that. You want to let it get, you know, I mean, I like deer to get 6 or 7 years old, but at least let the deer, you know, or at least get the trees the equivalent of like a 5-year-old. And like a 5-year-old deer to a tree would maybe be like, you know, 25 inches DBH. Yeah, it's about ready at that point. If you let it get to 27, 28, it's just going to be worth exponentially more. So bottom line, just be very conservative what you cut. Have a conservative forester help you. The ones to be very careful about are your veneer white oaks and your veneer walnuts, not to take too many of them and not to take them too early. Most of the farms I'd go to, I'd say 90%. I would never, 90% of the times, I would not log them first. The reason is this, 90% of the farms I ever go on, when you have like good quality oaks and good quality walnuts, they're usually kind of the exception. And what's happened across most of the Midwest, it's been top-ended for at least 2 or 3 cycles. So especially since the Great Depression and on, the best trees have came out. So whatever you buy, what people want to log is your best quality trees. They want to log the best genetics of the best species, and they're, by definition, they're going to leave the junk. And that's what's happened several cycles in. You might find a farm that's all junk. What I want to do is I want to leave the best genetics, especially if there's a very limited amount of them, and I want to remove the inferior genetics. So what happens with a lot of logging is they'll go in, they'll take stuff that isn't quite ready. They'll take walnuts like this just to get some money, and they're taking the best genetics and the best trees, and it's leaving you with junk. Well, I'd rather take all the junk first through TSI or through like a pallet wood sale or kind of a select cut where you're taking your inferior oaks and your inferior walnuts off the bat, and then letting this regenerate for years. Several years, I mean, even 5 years, and let it regenerate, and then start taking some of your higher quality trees when they've regenerated and they've created the next generation of good genetics. This is just my opinion, but I would not log your farm the first thing you do. It usually, if I just have to put a date on it, 5 years later. 5 years later, take good quality trees, if not 10. So, just my opinion, but I think it's a mistake that's done all over the Midwest. And it's also a mistake that's been done for probably 100 years now, top-ending your forest and leaving the junk. So just keep that in mind. It's just my thoughts, my 2 cents. The monster raining down acorns, baby acorns all throughout here. A lot of guys would have logged that. A lot of guys would have logged that. For what? For a couple $100? And instead I get, you know, I could get 50 more years of acorns coming out of that. If there was 500 of those, yeah, I'd take some. I wouldn't take them all, but I'd take some of them, and I'd actually leave some really good ones. So there's a lot of personal preference involved in logging, a lot of subjective parts, a lot of your goals, a lot of how long you can own the land. I mean, it's a whole can of worms. I understand that. Here's some logging I did, and I actually came in here with lots of oaks and lots of walnuts here, and right here is the remnants of a bunch of trees I took down. They're cottonwood. They were the least valuable trees. So I actually came in and logged my farm and took the worst quality out. And I left the best quality stuff, which I could have got paid a lot of money to take some of these walnuts and oaks, and I didn't. I will later. I will take some later. But it's the same thing I do when I buy a farm with bucks. If I buy a farm like in Iowa that does have mature bucks, the bucks I target on my farm are the older, lower scoring deer. I mean, I'm happy to have somebody shoot them, and they're thrilled to shoot them. A lot of times I'll have friends, family, that's maybe the biggest buck, but I want to shoot the inferior bucks with the inferior genetics, and I want to let the better genetic deer go. And when I buy a farm, however many older, poor genetic deer are, we'll shoot every single one of those if we can, with friends and family coming in and other hunters. A lot of times I'll sit with them, and we'll let the best bucks go, just so my farms, the composition is a better quality genetic pool. And I'm not looking to necessarily change the genetic pool. I just want to have more higher quality genetics running around. I don't want, the first thing I do is not shoot them, and I let those flourish and let them get to a ripe old age, and then I shoot them. So I always start out timber and deer by harvesting the lesser quality of the two. Nice and scratched up here. I always take the lesser quality of the two first. That's my first step. Trees and deer.